melody where the music's always bright. From history to theory, we'll keep your spirits light. Tune in for the stories, the rhythms and the groove. Join us on this journey, there's always more to prove. The melody, where every note's a thrill. The melody. Welcome to the Melody Podcast with your favorite host, James Shelton.
Welcome to the Melody Podcast. I'm your host, James Shelton. Today we're talking about Aretha Franklin. The fourth of five children, Aretha Louise Franklin was born on March 25th, 1942 in Memphis, Tennessee, to Baptist preacher Reverend Clarence LaVaughn, or otherwise known as C.L. Franklin, and Barbara Siggers Franklin, a gospel singer. Franklin's parents separated by the time she was 6, and 4 years later, her mother succumbed to a heart attack. Guided by C.L.'s preaching assignments, the family relocated to Detroit, Michigan. C.L. eventually landed at the New Bethel Baptist Church, where he gained national renown as a preacher. Franklin's musical gifts became apparent at an early age. Largely self-taught, she was regarded as a child prodigy, a gifted pianist with a powerful voice. Franklin got her start singing in front of her father's congregation. By the age of 14, she had recorded some of her earliest tracks at her church, which were released by a small label as the album Song of Faith in 1956. She also performed with CL's Travel and Revival show, and while on tour, befriended some gospel greats such as Mahalia Jackson, Sam Cooke, and Clara Ward. At the age of 12, she became a mother for the first time with a son, Clarence. A second child, Edward, followed 2 years later, while both sons taking her family's name. Franklin would later have 2 more sons, Ted White Jr. and Kickoff Cunningham. After a brief hiatus, Franklin returned to performing and followed heroes such as Cooke and Dinah Washington in pop and blues territory. In 1960, with her father's blessing, Franklin traveled to New York, where after being courted by several labels, including Motown and RCA, she signed with Columbia Records, who released the album Aretha in 1961. Though 2 tracks from Aretha would make the R&B top 10, a bigger success came that same year with the single Rockabye Your Baby with a Dixie Melody. That's a long song name, which crossed over to number 37 on the pop charts. But while Franklin enjoyed moderate results with her recordings over the next several years, they failed to fully showcase her immense talent. In 1966, she and her new husband and manager Ted White decided a move was in order. Franklin signed to Atlantic. Producer Jerry Waxner immediately shuttled Franklin to Florence, Alabama Musical Emporium, otherwise known as Fame. I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. Backed by the legendary Musical Shores rhythm section, Franklin recorded the single. In the midst of the recording session, while choreoed with a member of the band, and White and Franklin left abruptly. But as the single became a massive top 10, Franklin reemerged in New York and was able to complete the partially recorded track Do Right Woman. Respect. Hitting her stride in 1967 and 1968, Franklin churned out a string of hit singles that would become enduring classics, showcasing Franklin's powerful voice and gospel roots in a pop framework. In 1967, the album I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You was released, and the first song on the album, Respect, an empowered cover of Otis Redding's track, reached number 1 on both the R&B and pop charts and won Franklin her first 2 Grammy Awards. She also had top 10 hits with Baby I Love You, Think, Chain of Fools, I Say a Little Prayer, Sweet Sweet Baby, Since You've Been Gone, and You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman. Franklin's chart dominance soon earned her the title Queen of Soul, while at the same time she also became a symbol of black empowerment during the Civil Rights Movement. In 1968, Franklin was enlisted to perform at the funeral of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., during which she paid tribute to her father's fallen friend with a heartfelt rendition of Precious Lord. Later that year, she was also selected to sing the national anthem to begin the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Amidst this newfound success, Franklin experienced upheaval in her personal life, and she and White divorced in 1969. But this did not slow Franklin's steady rise, and in the new decade brought more hit singles, including Don't Play That Song, Spanish Harlem, and her cover of Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Waters. Spurred by Mahalia Jackson's passing and subsequent resurgence of interest in gospel music, Franklin returned to her musical origins for the 1972 album Amazing Grace, which sold more than 2 million copies and went on to become the best-selling gospel album at the time. Franklin's success continued throughout the 1970s as she branched out to work with producers such as Curtis Mayfield and Quincy Jones, and expanded her repertoire to include rock and pop covers. Along the way, she took home 8 consecutive Grammy Awards for Best R&B Female Vocal Performance, the last coming for her 1974 single, Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing. But by 1975, Franklin's sound was fading into the background with the onset of the disco craze, and an emerging set of young black singers such as Chaka Khan and Donna Summer began to eclipse Franklin's career. She did, however, find a brief respite from slumping sales with the 1976 soundtrack to the Warner Brothers film Sparkle, which topped the R&B charts and made the top 20 in pop, as well as an invitation to perform at the 1977 presidential inauguration of Jimmy Carter in 1978. She determined. A string of chart failures ended Franklin's relationship with the Atlantic in 1979. The same year, her father was hospitalized after a burglary attempt in his home left him in a coma. As her popularity waned and her father's health declined, Franklin was also saddened with a massive bill from the IRS. However, a cameo in 1980 film The Blues Brothers helped Franklin revive her flagging career, performing Think alongside comedians John Bushy and Dan Aykroyd exposed her to a new generation of R&B lovers, and she soon signed to Arista Records. Her new label released 1982's Jump To It, an album that enjoyed huge success on the R&B charts and earned Franklin a Grammy nomination. 2 years later, she endured a divorce from Terman as well as the death of her father. In 1985, Franklin returned to the top of the charts with a smash hit album, the polished pop record Who's Zoomin' Who, featuring the single Freeway of Love, as well as a collaboration band, the Eurythmics. The record became Franklin's biggest selling album yet. Her follow-up, 1986 Aretha, also charted well and eventually went gold, and her duet with British singer George Michael, I Knew You Were Waiting For Me, hit number 1 on the pop charts. In 1987, Franklin became the first female artist to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and was also awarded an honorary doctorate from the University of Detroit. That same year, she released the album One Lord, One Faith, One Baptism, which won the Grammy for Best Soul Gospel Performance. Following another relatively quiet period in her career, in 1993, Franklin was invited to sing at the inauguration of Bill Clinton, and the following year, she received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award and Kennedy Center honors. She would also be the focus of multiple documentaries and tributes as the decade progressed. Nearing its conclusion, Franklin reprised her former role in the Blues Brothers 2000, releasing the gold-selling A Rose Is Still a Rose, and stood in for Luciano Pavarotti, who was too ill to accept his Lifetime Achievement Award, with her rendition of Nissan Dorma, commanding stellar reviews. In 2003, Franklin re-released her final studio album on Arista, So Damn Happy, and left the label to find Aretha Records 2 years later. She was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom and became the second woman ever to be inducted into the UK Music Hall of Fame. In 2008, she received her 18th Grammy Award for Never Gonna Break My Faith, a collaboration with Mary J. Blige, and was tapped to sing at the 2009 presidential inauguration of Barack Obama. With 18 Grammys under her belt, Franklin is one of the most honored artists in Grammy history, ranked among the likes of Alison Krauss, Adele, and Beyonce. In 2011, Franklin released her first album on her own label, A Woman Fallen Out of Love. To support the project, she performed several concerts, including a 2-night stint at the famed Radio City Music Hall in New York, with fans and critics alike impressed with her performances. She successfully proved that the Queen of Soul still reigns supreme. In 2014, Franklin underscored that point with Aretha Franklin Sings the Great Diva Classics, which reached number 13 on the pop charts and number 3 R&B. In February of 2017, the 74-year-old Queen of Soul told Detroit radio station WDIV Local 4 that she was collaborating with Stevie Wonder to release a new album. "I must tell you, I am retiring this year," she said in an interview, adding, "I feel very, very enriched and satisfied with respect to where my career came from and where it is now. I'll be pretty much satisfied, but I'm not going to go anywhere and just sit down and do nothing. That wouldn't be good either." On August 12, 2018, it was reported that a gravely ill Franklin was bedridden in her Detroit home, surrounded by family and friends. As news of her condition spread, more luminaries paid a visit to express their well wishes, including Wonder and Jesse Jackson. 4 days later, on the morning of August 16th, Franklin succumbed, which her family revealed to be pancreatic cancer. A public viewing was held later that month at the Charles H. White Museum of African American History in Detroit, with fans camping out overnight for a chance to pay their respects to the iconic singer. Her televised funeral was set to be held at the city's Greater Grace Temple on August 31st, with Wonder, Can, and Hudson among the scheduled performers, and Jackson, Clinton, and Smokey Robinson highlighting the list of speakers. In January of 2018, it was announced that Franklin had handpicked singer and actress Jennifer Hudson to play her in an upcoming biopic. After being pushed back several times, Respect was released on August 13th, 2021. Her top 5 songs are Thank, 1968. Number 4, You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman, 1967. Number 3, Rock Steady, 1972. Number 2, Amazing Grace, 1972. And her number 1 song, You Can Guess It, was Respect, 1967. Check us out on Facebook at The Melody Pod for news and other information. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.